Now can you see me? 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 Okay, hold on. I'm echoing. I need to figure out how to stop myself from echoing. Okay, hold on. I'm echoing. I need to figure out how to stop myself from echoing. Okay. Okay, hold on. I'm echoing. Oh, fuck. I need to figure out how to stop myself from echoing. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. You can see me and hear me. I'm still echoing for some odd reason. Why am I echoing? I need to figure out how to stop echoing. Okay. I think I've figured out how to. Oh, I'm muffled. Okay, let me figure out my volume. Is this better now? Can you hear me now? How the world is very silly. Okay, tell me when I'm at an optimal level. Is this better now? I'm just making sure. There is static. Is this better? Is this better? Is this better? Can you tell me when you don't hear the static? Hold up. Is this? What's going on? Okay. Thank you, mass casualty. So somebody irritated me because basically, well, we all know that Emma Vigilant made a really stupid tweet about the Red Brown Alliance, and it's like, if you're gonna praise actual Nazis, don't talk about Red Brown Alliance with me, because that's just really, really, it gets on my nerves. By the way, I probably can't hear this. But I'm going to show you the video of her talking about socialism. I will show you the video and I will react to it and explain why this is really annoying and stupid. By the way, please become a super subscriber. I probably don't have it monetized, so you can't become a super subscriber or whatever it is required. But let's see, how do I do this now? Let me see. Oh, I have the monetization off. Let me see if I can make the monetization be on. And yeah, you have to be aware of the respectable left. Lenin called it the legal press. Okay, so now let me see if I can handle this myself. Okay, excellent. Red Brown Alliance is the stupidest thing because the only people who have consistently fought against Nazis are the Reds. So you can't cry about being a victim of communism and then also cry about the Red Brown Alliance. Be sure to like, subscribe, and do all the good things that you're supposed to do on the stream. Well, so let's see if I can show the thingy. Can you hear this?
Country. No universal health care, no universal child care, poor labor protections. Everyone knows this. But why is that? Well, if you look at American history, you actually find a pretty interesting reason. Unlike other industrialized countries, America never really had a powerful socialist movement.
Okay, this is 100% false. America had a very powerful socialist movement. And hello. Oh, by the way, I want an Irish person to come on Sundays with Lenin because I heard that Lenin speaks English with an Irish accent, and I've always wanted somebody to come and be Lenin speaking with an Irish accent. So I love Ireland. Cold shoulder war? Huh? What's wrong? Is like something wrong with my shirt, or you don't? Okay, you guys don't like the shirt. I can change it. So what's wrong? I thought my shirt was cool. Okay, the shirt is good. Okay, excellent. Anyways, yeah, so America really did have a powerful socialist movement. In the 1900s, it had quite a bit of people in the socialist movement. Almost a million people joined the IWW. And if you look at the worker strikes, um, you'll see that between 1905 to 1915, there were like thousands of worker strikes. And I'm sure I've tweeted this out sometime on historically. And so, well, that's the cool thing about the elites, is that they will concede everything besides power. So what you will see is that, for example, I wrote an article about this coal miners in Tennessee who did not want the mining company to use prisoner labor. So basically they burnt they set every single mine on fire for 3 years, and then they outlawed prison miner labor in Tennessee. So like I said, they will, yeah. So America did have one. In fact, Eugene Debs was in prison in 1920, and he got about 1 million votes from prison.
Compare that to Europe. In the 19th and 20th centuries, every country in Europe saw a huge socialist party develop. The Social Democratic Party in Germany,
Oh my
the
God.
Labour Party.
Okay. Frederick Ebert. So what happened is that, let's see. Where do we talk about Frederick Ebert? Dissident Rage is right. They think it's vaguely defined government repression as opposed to what I wrote in The Economy of Evil. So the fascists, what they do is that they hire death squads to go, because industrial machinery requires many people's input. If the people did not comport, like the factories were stopped in the 1900s, there was no automation. So what fascists would do is like literally point guns to people's children's heads, like slit the throats, whatever, just until they forced these workers to work in the factories. I would recommend Gaetano Salvermi's Under the Axe of Fascism. But it's to understand, and if somebody can look up my article, Economy of Evil, and I will show you what fascism is. How do you, yeah, so this is the book you should look up. Can you see it? No. Can you see this now? Okay. So, yeah, what you realize is that what you realize is that like fascism ends up looking a lot like Reaganism, and that's why they kind of hide that and hide the ball in America. Somebody please look up that article and just put it out on the chat for me. Anyways, let's see. Let me just quickly look up Frederick. I forgot how he was connected to the Freikorps. Okay, so Frederick Ebert, Lenin called him a monster in how the bourgeoisie uses renegades. But Frederick Ebert was okay. So here, literally on his Wikipedia, he says that to accomplish these goals, Okay, his policies at the time were primarily aimed at restoring peace and order in Germany and suppressing the left. To accomplish these goals, he allied himself with the conservative and nationalistic political forces, in particular the leadership of the military under Wilhelm Groner and the right-wing Freikorps. So the Freikorps were these death squads. Um, um, so yeah, the Freikorps were these death squads that went and killed peasants who were too unbehaved, and also, um, they also ended up killing what do you call it? Striking workers. So the book I'm going to use is called 4 Years of Political Murder. I hope you can see it. I'm going to take screenshots. It's in German. I don't speak German, but I can figure out what I'll show you. I hope you can see it. If you can see it, give me 1 minute. How do I do this? Can you see this? Never mind. I can't show it to you. It says I don't have permission to share. But it is a book by E.J. Gumbel. It's called 4 Jahre politischer Mord. And he basically goes through all the political murders between 1918 and 1922 and figures out the average punishment. And it's horrible. But Frederick Ebert was basically the Royalist army who was there to basically do what the we need to get that thing up. He was the Royalist army, and he needed to basically get up the he had to basically help capitalism succeed. So I would not personally praise Frederick Ebert, and generally speaking, if the let me see if I can. How I know what to do. Okay, give me 1 second. I think I can get the book out. Hold on. I got it. How do I do? So found it. Okay, let me see if I can get this now. Can you see this? Yes, you can. Okay. So this is Kolchak, Mannerheim. These are all the Juan Guaidos of their day. So let me see if so what did Lenin say is that he called Ebert a monster, but I'm trying to remember where he called it. Maybe this is not the one where Lenin calls him a monster. Okay. I swear he talks about the murder of Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Kniepknecht. Yes. If what we realize is that thank you, please, thank you. I love it. Yeah. um, yes, they were paid. Uh, who said that? Somebody asked me about the Freikorps. Yeah, they were paid by. Okay, so they were what you call the White Army. So in the German Empire, they were absolutely paid. But there was a time, I guess, they also called them volunteers, but they weren't really volunteers. Volunteers back then meant that they were not conscripts. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so let's go continue.
In the United Kingdom, the Socialist Party in Belgium. In countries like Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, parties with socialist roots governed for decades.
Okay. Okay. So just so we know, in Denmark, the SDP collaborated with the Nazis. In Norway, Norway had the highest ratio of people to brown shirts. They call them, I believe, gray shirts and some kind of wolves. Yeah, so these are social democratic parties. The difference between socialist parties and social democratic parties is that if you are robbing from third world countries, sure, you can give your labor a little bit of a handout, like free healthcare, housing, but that does not stop you from killing, like cutting people's hands off in Congo for not mining enough rubber. Socialism is when you append the order and you realize that you don't have to like rape people in Congo in order to get basics. Instead, you stop the wealthy from getting profit. So that's the main difference between social. And so with Denmark, almost the Communist Party became almost elected, right? It was 6 hours. So if Russia had liberated Denmark, Denmark would have been communist, but instead the British came. But then right before the British came, the Danish communists went and killed all the collaborators. That was kind of cool. They were like on this, okay, they were like, oh, we're not screwing with the British. Well, we know what they're going to do. And they went bing, 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 bing. So yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Now, none of these countries ever became fully socialist. Instead, socialist parties and their allies built well-functioning social democratic institutions.
Well-functioning social democratic institutions. Where do we start? Let's see. If you're everybody's weapons dealer, for example, I don't think you are a well-functioning social democratic institute. You are everybody's weapons dealer. And they were part of the European Common Market. I mean, the one thing I do have to say is that Sweden did try with Olof Palme, but even he got offed by the CIA. So stop praising Scandinavian countries because they're also built on third world exploitation.
It's what they called the European way. Universal health care, generous welfare programs, free education, and strong protections for labor.
Inside of Europe, while in Africa, you are cutting off people's hands for not mining enough rubber. And it happened after King Leopold's Belgium too. In fact, let me see if I can find it. Okay, I found it. Okay, do you know what year this is? I will have to, you guys are going to find it very, do you see this? This is a human zoo. This was in Belgium in 1959. So, yeah. Yeah, the European model is just like the American model, which is built on lots of imperialism. France, for example, still has something called the CFA zone. And that means that Um, that means that like 14 African countries still like still are forced to use this currency. Yeah, and so it's like, yeah, sure, you have all the like that's what the main difference is. Um, yeah, with France, and so the European model is not something you praise.
But that sort of transformation never happened in the United States. Now, to be fair, the US did see a fairly strong progressive movement in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. There was the Working Man's Party of the 1870s, the governments of Radical Reconstruction, which W.E.B. Du Bois called dictatorships of the proletariat, and the leftist Populist Party, which won 5 states in 1892. There were even 2 members of the Socialist Party elected to Congress.
And they were not allowed to sit because Congress banned them.
And in 1912, Eugene Debs, the socialist presidential candidate, received a full 6% of the national popular vote. The American socialists were successful enough that in 1906, the leader of the German Social Democratic Party predicted that Americans...
Okay, what year? 1906? The leader of the German Democratic Party, August Bebel? You should just ignore the German. Okay, I am also a member of the CPUSA. Yeah. But yeah, my audio is coming through. How do I stop it? I don't know. I don't know how to stop it. Okay, I will I'll mute myself when the head thing comes, okay?
will be the first to usher in a socialist republic. So why did the American left never gain power like the European left did?
Well, it depends on which European left she means. If she means Western European left, no, they did not gain power. And they did not gain power because of America and Britain went in and stopped it. Thank you, DL. And the hold on. Okay. The PSL is trots, and they don't act. The CPUSA doesn't really support the Democratic Party per se, but they do advocate for lesser evil voting. But whatever. Let me hide this. Okay. Thank you so much, DL. So in Western Europe, they never gained power, but in Eastern Europe, they gained power thanks to the Soviet Union. And when you don't mention the Soviet Union, you're just a fake leftist who capitulates to imperialistic propaganda. I'm sorry.
There are a few schools of thought about this. The most famous view, that of the German economist Werner Sombart.
His daughter was married to this doctor who was a founding member of the SS. And in 1934, Werner Sombart also wrote a letter in support of Adolf Hitler.
Suggests that Americans were too prosperous and wealthy to believe in socialism. All socialist utopias, he said, came to nothing on roast beef and apple pie.
Okay, he's also wrong. Gramsci actually explains this much better. But what happens is that you have a labor aristocracy in the imperial core, or basically, first of all, you have like unions, and then you have these union bosses who, like I said, like that happened with the AFL-CIO that collaborated with the management in order to ruin unions in the third world, the entire solidarity movement. So, okay. So then, yeah. So just, I would just ignore, like, this is just stupid. Okay.
Socialism needed workers to live close together to form working class institutions. It could do that in places like Berlin or London or Paris.
Okay, what about Russia and China, the biggest two countries in the world? Well, not to, I mean, Russia is the absolute biggest country, and it is like the entire US and Canada flipped to its side. So that is BS about the socialism needing workers to live close together. No, you needed Lenin. And in the U.S., if you can somebody go to my podcast and find the episode about the counter-revolutionary nature of suburbs. In fact, suburbs were created just to stop people from having a socialist revolution. On top of that, the like I said, yeah, the Russian Revolution, for example, like it scared the crap out of people so much that they actually, made suburbs to stop it.
But not so much in sprawling America. Even as the country urbanized in the 20th century, it also suburbanized. Suburban sprawl promoted anonymity and atomization rather than the sense of community and solidarity that socialism needs to take root. Denser places like the Lower East Side of New York, at one point the most densely populated place on Earth, were hubs of socialism and radicalism.
That's because they had poor people. That's where the shirt makers factory happened, and then there was this famous shirt makers factory fire where I believe it was 1913, where they closed the factory doors and everything burnt. Everyone burnt to death or whatever, and that's how we got a lot of laws.
Of all shades. But the vast majority of places weren't like that. And the fact that there was so much land also meant that workers were constantly moving in search of better jobs. As late as the 1960s, about 20% of Americans moved every year.
That's why you should read about Russia, because it was huge and it had more land, and they managed to do socialism. So the main difference is, of course, Russia was a third world country, so it was very poor. It was actually poorer than India. Same with China, and America had this kind of a what do you call it? There was two things: the infinite genocidal land part, and then the after World War II, there was the infinite war part, where they went in and sucked resources out of every country. So these are just kind of surface level, but it does not actually examine the character of capitalism. So what they did do in the 1948 was that they had a mass purge of communists from the unions, and the implicit agreement is that you help us be imperialistic and we will take care of you, the workers. And that lasted for about 30 years until Ronald Reagan, and then that just went boom, 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 and all the way down. So it was more of a calculated move. And on top of it, it's like not really a critique on capitalism. When you behave it is like a state of nature, as opposed to examine what happened here.
That rate of moving was way higher than in most European countries, and that central struggle, unifying and organizing a disparate working class, was made more difficult by a lot of other problems. Another source of division was occupation. Early attempts to form unifying working class organizations across different levels of skill, like the Knights of Labor in the 1880s, were destroyed by state terror and repression. There were also cultural and political distinctions that made building a party of the working class impossible. The fact that America had universal or near universal male suffrage at a relatively early date, decades before the United Kingdom, prevented voters from polarizing on class lines.
What? That makes no sense. Oh God, I don't even know what to say about this besides it's a word salad.
It's part of why, in the 19th and 20th centuries, many of the most dedicated socialists in America were Europeans importing socialist traditions from their home
Russians,
countries.
actually, Russians
It's
from
no
Russia.
surprise that socialism tended to be strongest in immigrant communities, among Germans, Scandinavians, and Finns. And
Russians, in fact, Russians were banned in the 1900s. Sorry, in the right after the Russian Revolution, they had an immigrant ban for like Russians, and then they were mass deported. Yeah. Exactly. There's also, yeah, the entire Jim Crow thing, and there was there were like infinite problems to actually voting if you were of a certain class or a certain race. Mostly, yeah, if you with the poll taxes, the deportations, so many things. Yeah, and the universal suffrage is not what happened. The death squads are what happened.
in the Midwest and among Jewish immigrants in New York. And all of these difficulties in building a broad-reaching socialist coalition were compounded by the structure of American politics. Even today, think about how many times you've seen a friend on social media begging people not to vote third party because it will take away votes from another candidate.
Oh my God. Okay. This is why you need to read Lenin, as if like electoralism can ever give you socialism. The bourgeoisie will not design a system that lets you vote them out of power. It's not about the third party or anything like that. No socialist country has actually gotten socialism through pure electoralism. And if you're going to say Bolivia, no, that's not what happened. Actually, Evo Morales was in charge of the water wars, and he actually in 2003, and when they had the Cochabamba water wars, he made a big name, and it was kind of a hybrid. And if you're going to say Hugo Chavez, no, he actually attempted to do an outright coup in 1994, and he became so popular that that every candidate's like campaign promise had to be that they were going to pardon him from prison, and then they pardoned him, and then he ran for president and won. But those are Bolivia and Venezuela are the exceptions, not the rule. And why is she thinking the okay, and of course, the structure of American politics cannot be harder than, say, Tsarist Russia, you moron. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. Okay.
And this difficulty was made worse by the brutal repression of socialists, violence by state troops and private police forces against unions in the 19th and 20th centuries, the first Red Scare of 1919 to 1920, which saw many radicals jailed or
Okay, that's kind of weird. What happened? Let's see. Okay, let me see if I can fix it. Hmm. Let me see if I give me one more minute. Let me see if I can let me see if I can figure it out. Found it. Okay. I found something. Let me see if this works.
In a lot of ways, America is a strangely pregnant country. No universal health care.
Can you see this? Can you hear this?
Or labor protections. Everyone knows this. But why is that? Well, if you look at American history, you actually find a pretty interesting reason. Unlike other industrialized countries, America never really made worse by the brutal revolutionist country. After all, in this century,
1930s, the first Red Scare of 1919 to 1920, which saw many radicals jailed or deported, and then the second Red Scare of the 1950s, which saw socialists and communists blacklisted and fired. Even now, people who consider themselves communists are banned from immigrating to the United States. But the question isn't really why America never became a socialist country. After all, neither did any of those European countries. The real question is why, after the Democratic Party briefly became a social democratic party in the 1930s and 40s, America has been without any party.
Okay, the Democratic Party did not. Oh God. Okay, let me figure out a way to do this again. Okay, so yeah, Emma is insufferable. And the reason why the the Democratic Party became a social. No, it didn't actually. Come on, don't be stupid. Okay, so there were some things. Okay, let me try it once more. There were some things that prevented that basically stopped them, like they had to capitulate to the capitalist class.
Became a social democratic party in the 1930s and 40s, America has been without any party pushing not just socialism, but any sort of redistribution to help ordinary people. That is the most bizarre absent feature of America.
No, it's not, because what you have is that basically it's a fascist country. I'm so sorry. It's a capitalist country in the imperial core, and until China kind of took away the gravy train, America had the infinite amount of world to exploit to keep the commodity prices down for you guys while exploiting third world labor. And the reason why that works is because the way so America basically set up in England, of course, because there are brothers. Like literally, England does not do England does not really do anything without America, and America does not do anything without England. It's like always like they're like this. Anyways, I don't know why, but literally like they're like this. But England. Well, FDR was basically FDR saved capitalism, literally, and America, quote unquote, fought against Nazis in the way that they didn't like the competition. I don't know what else to say, but right after or right during World War II, there was this like Bretton Woods conference where they basically set up how the entire world works, because the way it works is manufactured goods are valued way more than raw goods, and they extract raw goods from third world countries. But of course, raw goods take up most amount of labor, and so what happens is that you have people in Congo mining, in order to get up the value of, let's say, one manufactured widget, you need to do like that much cobalt in Congo. So okay, hold on, I will get to that. And so that's kind of what the IMF does, is that when there's a trade balance, it'll come with the structural, like a third world country obviously can't produce enough to keep up with like commodities. And so then what would happen is that the IMF would come, the third world country would get a trade imbalance. Then the IMF would be like, we're going to come. Okay, here's a loan. But in order to do this, you need to privatize everything and deregulate and let us hire child labor. And then, yeah. But then when that happened, the country itself got less revenue because it was privatized. Most of the profits went back to the West. And it was a vicious cycle until something horrible happened. And it still is going on forever. So that's basically what America did. And so what you did have is that enough people in America were basically comfortable enough that, am I making sense when I talk about the IMF? Because I feel like I'm not, but I just want to make sure. Okay, I'll get to it. Well, okay, this is Stalin was like a very well, actually, it's kind of funny. Roosevelt loved Stalin. And Stalin said something that he thought Roosevelt was a good person, but still, but a representative of the capitalist class or something like that. He said this in an interview. And it's kind of funny is that you can see in any picture, you'll see that Roosevelt and Stalin are like laughing together a lot. But then you see Churchill like kind of whining like over there. So FDR, thank you so much from Proletarian Pizza. Thank you so much. Exactly. It's sick. On top of it, what do you think the Social Democrats were doing? They were clapping Deutschland, Deutschland. They were singing Deutschland, Deutschland über alles while clapping in. So yeah, it's just gross. And yeah, IMF and privatization are synonymous. I'm glad I'm making sense. Okay, let's continue.
But of course, history isn't destiny. Denied opportunity their whole lives, forced into dead-end jobs, facing mountains of debt and grim prospects, more and more Americans, especially young ones, are identifying as socialists. Socialism never took root in America before, but that doesn't mean it can't now.
Okay. The one really okay. Notice two things. Two things that she did not quote. If you're going to talk about socialism, there are two people that you have to quote. One is Marx and one is Lenin. How do you talk about socialism without quoting either Marx or Lenin when literally, if you look at the total number of socialist revolutions there has been without Marx or Lenin is 0. And you don't even have social democracies without Marx and Lenin. Like, Lenin is behind everything. Mao took what Lenin did and modified it for China because the factories in China were guarded by imperialists while the rural areas were relatively free, which was the opposite of Russia. And that's what Mao did. Ho Chi Minh took what Lenin had and basically converted it for Vietnam. In fact, you should read Ho Chi Minh's The Path Which Led Me to Lenin. And the reason why Ho Chi Minh liked Lenin is because Lenin was not a racist shithead, unlike all the other European people. And yeah, he is going kind of Hegel. I don't know how to explain it, but Hegel, in a way, is a weird guy because he came up with dialectical materialism. But not quite. I don't know how to explain it. Like, okay, so Hegel came up with the method of dialecticalism, maybe, but not materialism. And Marx and Engels took his method and be like, we can use this to analyze social issues in a mathematical or quantitative way, and adapted it. So, he is a weirdo. He's boring. Hegel's really boring, actually, but you should read him. And you need to, like, it takes a while. He's very, I would suggest reading him, but it's hard and he's kind of boring. But you have a dictionary with you. And yeah, exactly. He came up with dialectics and Marx. Exactly. That's the perfect way. But yeah, I would say read him, but be careful. He's really boring, though. I don't know how to explain it, but I read him because I wanted to understand dialectics better. And yeah, it takes a little while, but it makes sense in that dialectical materialism is a way you kind of set up an experiment in your head when you can't have a control planet and an experimental planet and set up two economic systems. So if you don't do dialectical materialism, you're not doing anything useful for people. And bourgeoisie ideology is all about self-justification. So if you guys remember this like stupid political science professor from about 2 weeks ago, what did she was like something about like she made some weird thing about democracies. uh, and then if you looked at her metric, Tsarist Russia would count as a more democratic system than uh, modern day Russia, anything else. So yeah, um, so that's what you get with a lot of Western academia and Western journalists. The only people that do get to be journalists in the West are people who will never question their framework or have a memory of WASP. Like, for example, you should know that this one's kind of funny. Let me see if I can share it. Um, okay. Um, so look at the date, 1947. Communists to incite violence against dissidents. Come on. He was a Nazi. Um, yeah. But how did these people go from like, oh, this dude was a Nazi to this dude was a pro democracy figure? It's because they have to have a memory of a WASP and they don't. Yeah, okay, good, because Romania was also a bloody fascist country. Um, yeah, all of it. Like seriously, Romania was also a fascist country. Uh, and this one's really interesting. As I was speaking about it, what you'll see is that East Germany was banned, but West Germany was like basically all these fascist countries were allowed. Read Che Guevara's 1964 UN speech. But what you see is that yeah oh yeah, they were pretty bad. The Hungarian Aerocross Party was they were more like a they were kind of like the brown shirts and not the they were like the paramilitary, but they were horrific, but nothing compared to the Romanian Aerocross Party. They literally hung children from meat hooks. um Anyways, with that, anyone who has like, I honestly, I don't care if they call me like a cultist worshiper or whatever, but you should ignore anyone who has not read Lenin. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that they can come up with the dialectical materialism on their own, like everything, like dialectical materialism. Like I don't think they can do what Lenin did on their own. So I'm just gonna say ignore everyone who has not read Lenin. Okay. Have you read the Red Book by Jung? No. Should I? Why? Yes, exactly. Hegel is dialectical idealism. I don't know what lip sync is. Okay, so did I get anything? Oh, sorry, this question I forgot. Yes, the U.S. only in okay. The USSR didn't really. We should kind of go through. I need to do the subtitles. There's this really good documentary from the USSR that I downloaded, but it's in Russian and I need to do the subtitles. But my Russian's not that good for me to do the subtitles on my own. But we should once I finish the subtitle, once I start the subtitles or do the subtitles, oh, well, we should watch it together because we should have a watch party. It's going to be so fun. But what you see is that the Russians kind of got rid of the Nazis, but they didn't really occupy any place. It was like a much different relationship than the U.S. had. My favorite was how my favorite is how basically the U.S. expected the USSR to be a colonizer. So I remember, like in the Korean War, the USSR had during the Korean War, the U.S. government, like Truman would talk to like Molotov, and the Molotov's like, "Why are you talking to me? Go talk to Kim Il Sung." I don't know, and it was really like really a bad cultural mismatch because they didn't really understand any. Like it was just like Molotov. I felt bad for Molotov. Um, okay. Okay. I will check this out. Um, well, this is why you need to watch Late Nights with Lenin. So before What Is to Be Done, I would say watch my episode with Tina where we talk about where to begin. And with thank you so much. Yes, please get your mugs. Do I have any questions? Did I miss anyone's questions? I just want to make sure I got everyone's questions. Did I miss any comments? Let me see. I think I got all the questions. Okay. And with that, oh, by the way, on Wednesday, we are doing Soviet Summers, but we will be early because we're having Fran from Mango Press. So it's going to be at 8 o'clock. And this week we're going to have part 2 of the Taiwan episode come out on Historically. And I'm still trying to work on my video compilation of how the New York Times behaved with Nazis in the 1930s. They were praising Hitler far too late for mine. And I don't know why I'm so awesome. Mostly because I am always been very mistrustful. Yes, we stream on Saturdays at 10 o'clock for Late Nights with Lenin. We stream on Wednesdays for now for Soviet Summers. Yeah. And then we have our podcast, which we don't stream, but you can download. Okay. It depends on what you're interested in. So I would start with, it really depends. So if you, what are you trying to learn? If you're trying to learn, if you're trying to learn dialectical materialism, start with Stalin's Dialectical Materialism. But if you're trying to learn about the economy, definitely start with Lenin, with Development of Capitalism with Russia. And he has a lot of numbers. You get a pen and paper out, work those numbers with him so that you kind of understand in your head, because somehow with numbers, you have to kind of work it through your head yourself. So I would start with where to begin if you were trying to understand the capitalist economy. And if you're trying to understand what's wrong with the Democratic Party, I would read State and Revolution. Well, no, actually, State and Revolution is mostly figuring out why Kautsky sucks. But if you're trying to read, do Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder, and you'll laugh. Thank you so much. Exactly. The New York Times is so horrible. I mean, you'd be surprised. Like, they've literally called Mussolini a new hope, and they were very, very, very praising. My experience has always told me that whenever you have Marx, always, like, Lenin always explains whatever Marx explains in a better way, and he's a little funnier and he's a little easier. Oh yeah, Hungary had the first, what do you call it, anti-Jewish laws. So what happened was that there was a small period of time where there was a Bela Kun Republic, and then after they killed Bela Kun, what they realized is during that small socialist period that there were like too many Jews who were succeeding, I kid you not. So they had their first anti-Jewish laws way before Germany did. And yeah, Hungary has had a long fascist tradition. And I am still working on my documentary about the 1956 rebellion in Hungary that was all fascists. Well, you read Lenin with me, right? Anyways, that's all you need. Oh my God, I'm going to say watch it once. because it's a very traumatic movie. It's very accurate, but you have to watch it. This is also accurate. Yeah. Indeed, there was in fact, the Hungarian. If you once I finish the subtitles on the Soviet documentary, it's really cool. You'll see. I love Soviet documentaries because they begin with like like a big statistics dump, which is my favorite part. They're just like, okay, there were 10 million soldiers, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yes, I love statistics dumps. And American documentaries don't do like a statistic dump every time they begin. That's what I love about. So, no, literally, I'm not joking. Like every Soviet. Yeah, every Soviet documentary starts with a huge statistics dump about all the statistics that somebody like me would love. So with that, I will say auf Wiedersehen, because that's my new greeting. And see you guys on Wednesday, and I'm glad you're enjoying Soviet summers.